Welcome to Beer N Bulldogs. This show is about responsible dog ownership, the history, and appreciation of the American Pit Bull Terrier. We do not promote or condone any illegal activities, including animal cruelty or dogfighting, which are not only unethical, but also violate the Animal Welfare Act of 1976. This is strictly for legal, ethical, historical, and entertainment purposes. Let's keep it positive and show these amazing dogs the respect they deserve. Cheers!
About to go down, so who's gonna be my dogs? Cause I'm about to break some laws. I ain't supposed to get in any trouble again. If I do, they gonna put me back in the pen. But you like to dodge my calls, so I'm about to break your jaw. I ain't scared of doing time, it ain't even on my mind at all. So who's gonna feed my dog?
Yo, it's Kalipso from Beer N Bulldogs. If you're serious about your dogs, you need gear that's just as tough as they are. That's why I rock with Bulldog Strong. Built for strength, durability, and performance. Whether you're conditioning, training, or just taking a walk, their harnesses, collars, and leashes can handle the pressure. And when the work gets real, they got braking sticks to keep things under control. So don't settle for weak. Don't just be strong. Be Bulldog Strong. Yo, it's Kalipso from Beer N Bulldogs. If you're serious about feeding your bulldogs right, working dogs, performance dogs, or just your everyday beast, I rock with Showtime 2720. It's been solid for mine. Now, you can't just order it online, but it's out there. Just hit that link in the description. Drop your zip code and find a dealer near you. And hey, if you pick up a bag or one of them dope ass hats, let them know Beer N Bulldog sent you.
So people come to my house and they ask me, do that dog bite? And I go, not me. I say, not me.
People always ask, Kalipso, how do you keep your dogs looking so good? Always in shape, full of energy? Well, here's the secret. Vertex from Canine Performance Nutrition. It builds lean muscles, keeps stamina through the roof, and they recover fast after training. Plus, even my pickiest eaters can't resist that gravy mix. I don't just feed it, I swear by it. So if you want your dogs looking good and performing at their best, this is it. Beer N Bulldogs approved. CPN Vertex. Power your dog's performance. Welcome to Beer N Bulldogs. This is the show where we talk about the game-bred American Pit Bull Terrier, working breeds, and all things bulldogs. Over a cold one, of course. And today, we got a very special guest for you. Now, this man is definitely not new to the dogs. Let's just say he's an OG. Man, he's been dealing with the old family red-nosed dogs for quite some time. He does some beautiful crosses that I think a lot of my audience needs to find out about. You know what? Let's just go ahead and get into it. We got OG Loco, y'all. Hey, what up, OG?
What's up, man?
Hey, man, just chilling, man. I'm glad to have you on the show, man. Really
Right
am.
on.
Really am, man. So what's been up with you, man? How you been?
Busy, man. I'm just busy. I'm a busy person, so making time for the dogs and then everything else I do in life is always challenging. But it is like morning to night.
I bet.
And I have a few hobbies that I was like, man, I haven't even been able to do my hobbies, so I need to make time to take off for a while.
I hear that.
It's really hard to, take off when you got dogs and you got a yard. So, I'm able to make time every now and then.
Well, OG Loco, man, I have some questions for you.
All right, on.
Okay. So, when did you get your first American Pit Bull Terrier, and how old were you?
Well, I got my first one probably in like 1983. Well, it wasn't registered, but my first purebred registered pit bull was in 1990 that I actually got papers on. I grew up in Southern California. My story is, I wasn't really raised around pit bulls like a lot of people, family had them. It was like I just sort of, intermittently ran into them. And then my story is, what I try to tell, I'm not glamorizing pit bulls as being game dogs. It's just like the story is these dogs are not for everybody, and a lot of people shouldn't own them. And I've made all the mistakes in the world with these dogs, and I try to share them, and they're just truthful stories. These stories really happen in my life, in my journey to where I am today, and there were learning experiences. But I would have to say the first dog fight I ever saw was in 1975, 76. I was in elementary school.
Wow.
I was living in West Covina, California, an area called the Galaxy District. And I remember I was probably fourth, fifth grade, and this pit bull shows up, or a bulldog. I don't know if it was Amstaff. In those days, you either had an American pit bull or an Amstaff. You didn't have bullies yet. So it was either a pit bull or an Amstaff. I don't know what it was. It was just a bulldog. And I remember showing up at the playground, and all the kids were like, oh, look, that's a different looking dog, because there weren't something that you had seen, because in those days it was more German Shepherds, Dobermans, those types of dogs, and to see a pit bull look different. And we used to say, oh man, this is like, they cross a dog with a pig. Look at it. It looks like, I mean, we were kids.
Yeah.
That was your first impression when you see a compact, stocky dog. And I remember a Samoyed showed up. I think back, like, why didn't people control their dogs? The dogs used to run loose.
Yeah.
That pit bull attacked it on the playground, man. It was killing it. I mean, brutally killing it. And I remember all the kids were throwing our balls, rubber balls, trying to break it up. And I had never seen anything so vicious at that time. I was a kid. I had never seen anything so vicious, a dog so vicious. And it was bloody.
Yeah, it could either be traumatizing or exciting, maybe both.
Yeah, I think at that point it was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
So it was my first experience, and I remember Pound came and got the dog and probably put it down, but it was a pretty big deal, at an elementary school. And then I don't think I saw pit bulls again until the early 80s. Okay, this was like in 75, 76. And I had a cousin who had pit bulls, not registered. I don't know. They were just gave me one, and I had her. And then, we were teenagers at the time. So I had a friend, a guy who lived around the corner. He used to have a cream red nose, and that was the first dog. His name was Magnum, again, unpapered dog. And anyway, I did some breedings. We're high school kids, did some breedings. We'd go sell them at Chino auction for like $100. Kid stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it was back in those days, it was like $100 was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Kids.
Oh, yeah.
And we would sit in front of the Chino auction and like sell our pit bull puppies, you know, $50, $100, you know. And that's sort of how it started. And I started my first dog, her name was Rummy, and I don't remember her being like aggressive game. I just remember her just being a good dog.
Yeah.
But Magnum, who we bred to, was a killer. And we would breed to him, and they would find dead dogs in the yard. He'd hollow them out. He was a cannibal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how he was bred. He was just a red nose. That's all I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, the guy that owned him ended up moving. So he knew we were like the kids that had the pit bulls. He goes, "Hey, you want Magnum?" I go, "Yeah, man, we like Magnum." He had a reputation. You know, when you're barrio kids,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, you know, the word spreads. Everyone sort of knew who Magnum was. And, you know, he was a bulldog and had a reputation. And in those days, we were like, who has the baddest dog? You know,
Mm-hmm.
you want to have the baddest dog. We were kids.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we did little kids stuff with them. But I think the thing with Magnum was this dog would get out once a month and kill dogs. And we'd always find him in the morning full of blood, all swelled up. I mean, it was like a regular thing. He wouldn't get out every day. It was like a monthly thing.
Yeah.
Once a month out. You know, we'd hide him out for like weeks till all the swelling. Then we'd walk the neighborhood and like, what'd he kill? You know, did he kill a person? Because sometimes it was like he was full of blood.
Yeah.
And you'd always find a dead dog in the street. You know, and that's where the cannibalism showed up. He would hollow them out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, we just learned that, you know, Magnum guy, he would get out and he'd go on a killing spree, and you know, we would hide him out and you know, wait till things calmed down, and you know, he was our dog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he was a good dog. You know, I think when I went to college, so I had him until, well, I went to college like 18. And he was already older, so we ended up putting him down. And here's the sad story, though, learning experience. So what happens, Magnum's older now. His head has swelled up like a balloon. I mean, huge.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why. So we decided, I think me and my girlfriend at the time said, you know, let's just go put Magnum down. You know, I wasn't really home a lot.
Yeah.
So we took him to Humane Society and said, hey, you know, we need to put our dog down. And they're accusing us of fighting him. I go, no, I mean, I didn't fight him. I don't know why his head was swelled up. So anyway, before we were leaving, they had already euthanized him and they did an autopsy. So I think they were trying to see if we were fighting him or not.
Yeah.
And he had an abscessed tooth because he used to chew on logs. So he had a splinter that got abscessed, and that what caused his head to fill up with pus.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't know at the time. Had I known that that's what it was, I mean, it seemed like an easy fix, but he was already an older dog, and you know, it was sort of like lesson learned. Okay.
Yeah.
Taught me now that if my dog's head swell up out of no reason, is don't go put him down thinking something's wrong with him. It might be an abscess.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
that was a learning experience. So then I ended up going to college, and about this time, you know, I saw the movie like New Kids. I don't know if you guys remember that movie, The New Kids.
Right.
And then I saw a movie, Flashdance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like in the 80s. And that was the first time I really saw what I considered an old family red in flash stand. That was Jumbo Jim. I didn't even know his name at the time. I did some research on him later when I got into the dogs, but Jumbo Jim was a big red nose in the movie Flashdance, and just a cool looking dog. And that sort of got me into the old family red nose strain. I started reading the Richard Stratton books and reading all the stories of the old family red nose dogs. And so when I got out of college and I got married, I had kids, and I'm now living in Victorville, California. It was time like, oh yeah, I want to get a family dog, So I looked, and I ended up, like we said, the recycler, the Inland Empire recycler, and I just looked, and I found a pit bull for sale, and ran down there, drove down there, and it was 44 Magnum, OG Loco's 44 Magnum. And they had them in a chain, like in a garage, in the dark. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure that he was taken in on a drug trade. I don't know that for sure, but it was like the dude had this dog and he had the papers. He goes, man, just give me $100 for him. He didn't, somehow he had just got the dog.
Yeah.
I don't know how. It was just like, but what I liked about Magnum was, even though he was living in terrible conditions, like in a garage in the dark, chained up, he was real friendly. He just wanted attention. He was like a year or two old. So I ended up giving the guys paying for him, and this was the first time I had papers.
Yeah.
Papers. But I don't know anything about breeding. I don't even know how Magnum's bred. I don't know how to read a pedigree. I just liked the dog.
Yeah.
And he was a white red nose, which made him different. He was all white red nose with the hazel eyes.
Huh. Nice.
I get him home, and I had Neapolitans at the time too. I had a Neapolitan Mastiff, and Magnum hit him. I was like, whoa, this dog's aggressive. I mean, he was out. He was like full on. Like, oh shit. Well, I can't keep them together.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, I know pit bulls, but I don't know game dogs yet.
Yeah.
So I'm still, learning. And then about that time, I remember I'm breeding some pups, once in a while, still doing my kid shit. And the guy calls me. And he goes, hey, how's your dog Brad? I was like, oh man, let me grab his papers. I don't really know any of these dogs. So I ended up reading the pedigree, and he goes, I know those dogs, dude. I was like, oh, you do? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I know a lot of those dogs in his pedigree. We should meet up. And so anyway, I ended up meeting this cat, and went to his house, and I brought Magnum's papers, and he rolled them out for me. And he was a longtime breeder in the old family red-nosed dogs with the OFBA, the Old Family Bulldog Association.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually had gotten dogs from Dan Hanna and was able to get some of those dogs off the Wilder's Red Satan dog. So he had them. And so he had a lot of history, a lot of experience and knowledge, and he showed me how to read a pedigree, and he's showing me Magnum's pedigree, the dogs he knew. And then he was telling me how to breed. He goes, oh, if you want to breed, he'll show me how to do line breeding, explaining it to me. It's like weaving a basket. You want to go back and forth, stay within a family, the basics at the time. But I'm still learning. I'm a kid, maybe 21, 22 at the time.
Yeah.
And anyway, we become friends. And about this time now, I'm going to ADBA shows in Riverside. I'm living in Victorville. I'm running with some cats. That's where I met most of the guys that ran gang dogs, was at APBT shows.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, back in those days, it was like they didn't show dogs, but everybody went to the show and we would all hang out and we start talking, you know, and so-and-so knows so-and-so, and I got this and I got that. And, you know, you start sort of running together in a circle, and everyone had their own bulldogs, and, you know, things like that.
Yeah. Well,
And,
I was just going to say, you said you had some Neapolitan Mastiffs too there.
yeah.
I'm just guessing, you know what I'm saying? When you seen that pit bull go at him, you were a little probably like, whoa, this is I'm just going to ask, what made you choose the APBT over other breeds that you probably could have maybe be, you know, you could be OG Loco, the Neapolitan Mastiff guy today.
Yeah, and I had some good Neapolitans. I mean, I spent a lot of money. It was like when those were the old Neapolitans, not the big wrinkly ones today. They were the working ones. They probably looked more like Honey Corsos back in those days. They were bulldogs. So they would hit.
Yeah.
But I think it was Magnum's that drive.
Gotcha.
That drive. That's what made me get rid of the Neapolitans and then focus on the pit bulls. And I don't think I've owned like Jack Russell and a Jag Terrier, but the pit bulls I've always had, you know, since like 1990. And then I've had other strains. When you start running with cats, you know, then I got sponsored to get the Sporting Dog Journal. That was a big deal to us back in those days. It's not like today. Back then, you had to get vouched for and sponsored to get the Sporting Dog Journal. So, you know, when you're an outsider, especially a young guy, you have to know somebody that's in the circle, and they have to sign. They had to sign for you to get for Jack Kelly to get you the journal. So when I finally got sponsored and I got the journal, I was like, yeah, man, I remember bragging to all my friends, I'm getting the journal now. And then I ended up sponsoring people. You know, that's always so where it worked. But it was like an old school, I think because a lot of us were raised around gangs. You know, a lot of the guys I ran with were, you know, from the neighborhoods. They were either gang members, ex-gang members, but we all had pit bulls. It was different. The way I view it, and I'm trying to explain it, is it's like when, at that time, the people that were getting paroled and on probation in LA County
needed to find something.
Were getting moved up to the high desert, okay?
Yeah.
Especially if they were gang affiliated. So you had guys from different gangs that were all now Chicanos living in the high desert who all have pit bulls. So it's almost like a car is like, we didn't have those rivalries like you did if you lived in the neighborhood. It was like, hey, we're all Chicanos. We all sort of grew up in the LA Inland Empire area. We're all living in the high desert now. The high desert back then was pretty rural. It wasn't like it is today. So if you were a Chicano and you had pit bulls and you were familiar with the culture, we sort of came together.
Yep.
You know? And we started hanging out. You know, I never clicked up. I was never a gang member. But, you know, you're raised in the neighborhood, and a lot of your friends that you grew up with became gang members. So you know the culture. You know how to carry yourself. You know how to handle yourself. That stuff. So now we're living in the high desert. We're cats. We're getting now. I'm studying the Sporting Dog Journal, and I remember, man, I was like a kid. I used to call like the famous breeders. I talked to James Crenshaw. I talked to Wildside at Fair, and I talked to St. Benedict's.
Shout outs to Wildside.
I talked to Katie Marlowe, and at that time the Red Boy dogs weren't on the West Coast yet. You know, they were more in the South. So I remember somebody getting a pure red boy, and we were like, "Oh wow, I've never seen a red boy dog in person."
Yeah.
So, and they had gotten it, I think, from Katie Marlowe. And I remember she used to sell her dogs. I could have bought some dogs off Katie Marlowe back then. I could have bought a dog from James Crenshaw too, because they're famous dogs now. They weren't famous then.
Yeah.
They were just in the magazine. I remember some guys were telling me, "Oh, if you could get a dog from Crenshaw, get it off of his Irene dog. That's what you want." And I remember calling James and talking to him. And he didn't have nothing off Irene. So I never got a dog from Crenshaw. And I never got a dog from Katie Marlowe. Because at the time, and this is being honest, it's not attacking the red boy dogs, because I do have red boy blood now. The big question was how they were bred. Was he truly bred on his papers? And a lot of guys in those days didn't want to mess with the red boy blood because of that issue.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't know what you're introducing to your bloodline, because the pedigree had been up for discussion. And you know the stories behind red boy. They found
right.
There's so many stories on him. I think red boy over the years, regardless of how he's bred, has proven to be a producer of high caliber game dogs. That's all that matters today.
Wild ones.
You know? Yeah. That's all that matters. But you got to go remember, this is 30 years ago. You know, they were still, I don't know, type stuff.
Yeah.
And this is before Mayday hit the scene. When I got involved, Jeep. If you had a Jeep dog, man, Jeep was the stuff. And I remember a friend his dad was a truck driver. He got a son or grandson a Jeep. And we were kids, and I was like, who's Jeep? I was like, I didn't even know who Jeep was. And it was just a dog we played with. It was just a little buckskin black nose. Nothing really spectacular about her, but she was off Jeep. So a lot of the dogs that were being shown where I was living were heavy on the Jeep blood, and so if they were dominating, Jeep dogs were just dominating. This is before the Buck dogs came on the scene. This is before the Mayday dogs came on the scene. It was Jeep, and Red Boy wasn't even that hot yet. It was Jeep, and this is before the Jeep Red Boy dogs got famous and the Jeep Rapskull dogs got famous. So, I think that's what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met some guys, a couple guys where I lived were running LA Dream Team stuff off the Jesse James stuff.
Okay. Shout
out
to the LA Dream Team.
Yeah, and that was sort of the circuit. You had to go through if you're running fast lane back then, you had to go through those guys. And I wasn't running fast lane. It was just guys I knew, who, you sort of knew who was who type thing, so they were running some Jesse James stuff, and but I always had my 44 Magnum dogs,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, and then I met, you meet so many guys. It was like everybody had their own program. We trade dogs.
Which I did. I that was the question I was going to ask you, man. When you were kind of going through this journey, like, who were some of the dog men that inspired you, when you first were getting in, out there and going to these ADBA shows? I heard you say James Crenshaw and Katie Marlowe, but who were some of the, and dog women? I didn't want to. Dog women too.
I think that was it. I think in those days, fast lane was, you were competing, you were open against the world, you were competing against the best, you were traveling, and you were high level dogs. So, and you were published in the magazine, so you were also recognized by Jack Kelly and published. So your accomplishments were recorded and published, and then you got points. So for us, is like we got a dog one day, and we were like excited. She had 2 points in the Sporting Dog Journal, and that was the big deal to us.
Yeah,
Man, we got a Sporting Dog Journal dog with that's pointed in the journal, and that was a really big deal to us as kids.
mm-hmm.
I mean, young men,
Of course.
because most of our dogs were, I mean, they were bulldogs, and we were doing our thing with them, but we weren't competing like in the Sporting Dog Journal in the fast lane. When you're a kid, that's like pro sports.
Yeah.
So, you're following like STP, you're following STP. You're seeing these dogs, these dogmen that are being published in the Sporting Dog Journal that are, you become a fan.
Yeah.
You start following.
But did you have any mentors personally, like any mentors who were like kind of showing you some things other than that guy you were talking to who showed you how to, breed a little bit in the weaving process? Was there anybody else kind of like maybe mentoring you, just being like, yo, man, this is what you need to be up to?
No, not really. I mean, you sort of run into people, but I never had like someone take me under their wing.
Yeah.
I would talk to a lot of people, and I was learning.
You was studying. You was reading Richard Stratton books, so you was doing your thing.
Right. And the old family red noses at that time, they've changed today, but back in those days, one of my first dogs I got was from Bear Storms when I started getting into breeding. So I remember I had 44 Magnum, and I'm learning to breed, and now I want to start breeding the old family red-nosed dogs. He was heavy bred on the Geronimo Red Dixie stuff.
Okay.
And he had some Serona in him and a lot of Klaus. So he was considered really a Hempfield Klaus type dog.
Yeah.
He wasn't a pure Hempfield dog, which was in those days, if you had a pure Hempfield dog, that was a big deal. So he was more of a Hempfield Klaus cross, and he had some Colby Heinzel in him. But I wanted to tighten them up, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to breed the game Old Family Red because I was following with what the OFBA was trying to do. The OFBA was trying to get the Old Family Red Nose back to a working status, okay? So back in the day, if you were an old-time dog man and you were running your fast lane blood, if you had a game bred Old Family Red, that was part of history, and they didn't sell those dogs. You couldn't get them. You had to be in the circle and vouch for if you wanted good Hempfield blood, the old Hempfield blood.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, Hempfield died in 1967. So a lot of these breeders, they had a pure Hempfield dog, and they would breed them for their own purposes, their own yard. But they also had their other line, their fast lane line.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing their thing with their fast lane dogs, and then they had, it was always like a little bit of pride. I have an Old Family red-nosed dog off the old Leitner Hempfield blood. So to get that blood was really hard, and it wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
If you could even get it. And if you got it, you didn't get it with papers. So that goes back to the old story of a lot of those Hempfield dogs, when they wouldn't sell, them, breed them, they wouldn't give you papers. So it always makes you wonder how much that Old Family red-nosed dogs is in modern dogs. It just wasn't recorded in the pedigree.
Yeah.
So the story is, I now want to breed game Old Family. I want to keep them. I think it was a challenge for anybody. I could have went with G, could have went with Wildside. When you start with fast lane bred dogs, really deep games, you could have started at a higher tier. Okay. I think for me as a breeder, I wanted the challenge was, could I get these dogs back to a working status based on the blood I had? Could I keep them game? Could I keep them working? Okay.
Yeah.
And that you had to go through a lot of test breedings, a lot of testing, a lot of calling.
Yeah.
It took a lot. It wasn't, but for me, it was a challenge. savage.
Well,
Okay?
let me ask you this then, OG Loco, because those are some of the questions I've got for you.
Yeah.
But when you hear the term old family red nose, to you personally, besides just the color, what does that mean to you?
Deep gameness. You know, that's what they were known for. And if you know the history, you know, I'll do a little history on what attracted me to this strain of dog. Is there's like 3 waves of old family red nose in our history. When they were developing the breed, prior to the ADBA and UKC registering American Pit Bulls as a pure breed. Back in those days, they were fighting dogs. Okay, they weren't pit bulls yet. So you had fighting dogs in England, Ireland, Europe. You had the early Americans who had their own fighting dogs here in America. But you know, it was sort of open in those days. It was open competition, as you could have fought a German Shepherd against a pit bull. You know, it was just like, it wasn't a breed yet. So when you read the stories and the history, and they're developing the American Pit Bull breed, they're really looking at gameness. You know, how do you capture gameness? A pit bull. And I think they were going through testing a lot of different strains.
A lot of savage stuff that we wouldn't probably even some of the fast lane guys today wouldn't even participate in. Some real savage. I know.
Right. And then I believe a lot of those early breeders were boxers too. So they took a lot of the early bare knuckle fighting rules and started developing rules for dog fighting and cockfighting. A lot of them. So if you were like a fighter, you know, you were probably into dogs and chickens too. A lot of those guys, you know, same concept. So the scratch line and all that came from boxing. You know, that came from men that, you know, how do you show your game? You know, those rules. So I think as breeders, you know, we identify traits in men, and we try to apply that to dogs or animals. And in this case, if you're breeding a fighting dog, there's certain characteristics that humans value that they wanted to breed into their dogs. Okay? And deep gameness was one of them. So I think what I read was in the developing of the breed, the Irish and the English were breeding these fighting dogs in Ireland and England long before we were a country, hundreds of years. And the Irish dogs were known for deep gameness. And I'm not even sure they were pit bulls yet. They were just old family reds. That's what they called them. They were old family reds. They were an Irish fighting dog. They went by different names, smuts, Irish staffs, whatever you want to call them. But the common was old family reds that were being imported to America off the Irish immigrants. So the Irish immigrants, when they were coming to this country, would bring their fighting dogs with them. And they were family bred, so these dogs were known for deep gameness.
Yes.
That's what they were known for. So I feel like that was the first real wave of the old family red. And they started American dog fighters like Colby and Leitner, who would be at the docks, and they would buy up these dogs from the Irish immigrants. And they started blending those old family reds into their fighting dogs, and in the creation of the American Pit Bull Terrier.
Right.
So same thing was happening from the English immigrants, but Irish were known for deep gameness. And they were, because they were doing so much family breeding back on the island, that they were starting to turn recessive. So they were starting to look red with the red coat and the red noses and the red toenails. So these recessive traits. And so that's how you didn't call them pit bulls. They were just like, oh, that's an old family red. You That's what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the first wave. The second wave is Lightner and Colby started using these Irish Old Family Reds in their breeding program and developed their families. So Colby sort of he was more of an Irish English mix, even though I think he was an Irishman himself. And then Lightner, same thing. He had some Colby, but he was more on the Irish blood, and his dogs started looking at the red noses. Yeah. And Lightner, what people don't realize, John Colby and William Lightner, they were great breeders. Great breeders. Like, they produce world-class fighting dogs. Yeah. That if you were competing against Colby and Lightner, and then you had Con Feely and a few other guys.
Con Feely.
Those guys that was like every weekend or maybe every day. I don't know. But it was open, it was public, it was legal, and that's what they were doing. You fought chickens, you fought dogs, you fought in bars. It was all for earning money because they were poor people. And that's just, that was your hustle back then. So when I read up on that, and then I started reading up on the Lightner dogs and some of the great matches that Lightner had bred. And I think what made Lightner a great breeder, he got out of the red-nosed dogs. And then he moved, I think, to Colorado, and he started a separate Lightner line. There's two Lightner lines.
Yep.
And he bred the black ones. Okay. So he had his first ones were the bigger red noses, and then he started a totally separate line, which were smaller black dogs. So those were the two Lightner strains. That's what made Lightner a great breeder. He was able to do it twice. He was able to produce world-class fighting dogs out of two different families.
Right.
And then I read the story of Cersei Jeff and Wallace.
Yep.
All those guys and the conventions and Earl Tudor. Even Earl Tudor had Old Family Reds. He even had Centipede for a while.
He did have Centipede. Yeah, you're right. I was just thinking that. I'm like, somebody had Centipede. Pumpkin. There was great old
he had all those
Reds.
old dogs. And those, you got to remember, fighting dogs are built on the back of fighting dogs. That's why you find Colby and Old Family Red in almost all your dog's pedigree. I mean, there ain't a game pit bull a day that doesn't have Old Family Red or Colby somewhere.
So as a guy what you do, and a lot of people, is you're taking that Old Family strain and you're crossing it and doing what the OGs were doing. That's why you OG Loco.
Right.
So this
is why. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, but do you think that the Old Family Red Nose still have a place in the working dog scene, or do you think careless breeding has hurt it for the most part?
I would say careless breeding has hurt it. It's
careless breeding in everything going on today.
Yeah, and I think that's what gave it a bad reputation. Because in my era, is when I got started, if you had a game bred Old Family Red Nose, that was a big deal because they were rare. It was like having a pure Corvino. It was rare. And if you had a pure Corvino or a pure Old Family Red or even a pure Colby back in those days, that was a big deal because these were the famous breeders.
So sometimes they didn't breed them.
Well, it happened in I would say in the 70s. This is where it hurt. Okay, so Bob Hempfield dies in 67. He's not active no more in the 60s. I think he became more of a breeder. Okay, and then the Tudor Dibo dogs come on the scene, and the Hempfield dogs could not compete with the Dibo dogs. Okay, when the Dibo dogs hit the scene, they had devastating mouths. And the Hempfield dogs were game. And Bob Hempfield, if you look at his old advertisements, he never said his dogs were the greatest fighting dogs. He said they were the gamest that were ever bred. So in those early days, it was a scratching game. it was basically 20, 30 scratches. The last dog to scratch won, you know, so they didn't have a lot of finishing ability, a lot of mouth. They were just game.
Mm-hmm.
And they were public events. They were like, you can go to a convention to sell hot dogs in their stands, and, you know, it was a big deal. Like, oh, the 20th scratch. You know, that was those old fighting days. Then when the Dibo dogs hit the scene in the 50s, mid 50s, and Earl Tudor, he wanted hard mouth.
Yeah.
You know, that was his thing. And he really was seeking hard mouth. And he ended up getting the Dibo dogs and crossing them on the Henry dogs. And he was able to produce devastating killers, straight up killers. So what happened is these deep game dogs that Hemphill had couldn't compete with the hard mouth killers of the Dibo dogs.
I can see it.
And
I
so
can
they
see what you're
start
saying.
falling out of favor because they can't compete with these new dogs. So Hemphill starts adding Dibo. So his later
Smart.
advertisements, he was breeding 1/8, 1/16 Dibo into his dogs. Says he knew he had to add Dibo to his bloodline to compete at the top level. Sort of what I'm doing now. It's like, I'm not inventing the wheel. I'm just repeating. Hemphill knew the weaknesses of his strain, and he knew what it took to compete at the top level.
Mm-hmm.
So he introduced new genes to his dogs, to the Leichnер dogs, and added the mouth and finishing ability to those dogs. And that's where the Dibo family red nose crosses come in.
Okay.
So you now go through a generation. They stopped calling them old family red noses. You look at Maloney's too, and you look at Carver's Black Widow. There's a whole strain of dogs that were old family red Dibo crosses. Lonzo's Andy, all those dogs.
Yeah.
And basically, it's sort of like the Eli and Red Boy today. Is you had a strain of dogs that was deep game, and then you have a very hard mouth strain, and they were crossing them. But they were doing Dibo family red noses in those days. And as a result, you created different families. Hemphill wasn't breeding, and they weren't, you know, pure Hemphill or pure Leichnер anymore. Just heavy bred. So what happened in the 70s, this is where it hurt the breed or the strain. Wilder got him, Jake Wilder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jake Wilder started off, you know, trying to breed game dogs, because if you look some of his early breedings, you know, he was, people don't know this, that Wilder and Everett Tartanar were breeding dogs under Bert Klaus.
Yeah. Okay.
So Klaus was guiding them. So
yeah, I didn't know that.
See a lot of Klaus in the Wilder dogs or the Tartanar dogs. That was under Bert Klaus's direction. And that's where the beginning of the Hemphill Klaus strain starts.
Nice. I did not know that.
Blending a lot of the Klaus blood with them. But then Wilder started trying to breed pure Hemphill. And he was, for some reason, I don't understand it, they became more of a preservationist. Like, I got the pure Hemphill stuff. It's red nose with the gold eyes. The pedigree looks good. And then you started getting this whole flux of breeders that weren't dogmen, that were capitalizing on the Hemphill name and the color and the appearance of the dogs. And those dogs weren't being looked at. They weren't being checked. And what happens when you do that over generations, your percentages go down.
Mm.
Okay. So you had that's what I think hurt the old family red nose strain. What people don't talk about are the other strains that use the old family red nose cross on the Dibo stuff that we use today, which is the fast lane stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be, they just don't call them old family red nose. They call them different families.
Yeah.
After that.
I was going to say,
but if you,
Macho Buck, Mayday, they all have a little bit of that Hemphill in them that people are looking for.
Those dogs too, it's not just Hemphill. You know, the old family red is Williams too.
Yes.
Williams,
Sorry,
Bob Hemphill wrote that he felt Jim Williams, he was a UKC fight judge, that he was who Bob Hemphill looked up to. It was like, because Bob Hemphill wrote the UKC fight rules.
Okay.
You know, he wrote the rules, and I read an article once that Jim Williams was a very well-known, well-respected dogman who had the old family red blood, the Leitner stuff.
Okay.
But Williams didn't call his dogs old family red. He just called them Leitner dogs.
Yeah.
But it's the same blood. It's the same blood that Hemphill was running. Hemphill just happened to call his Leitner dogs old family red nose. So if you look at the Jim Williams dogs, you're going to find Jim Williams and all the Carver dogs. You know, William Sarge and all those dogs that are behind Black Widow. A lot of people don't recognize those are Leitner dogs. Those are old family red dogs. But because
is this the Leitner who took on the black dogs?
No, these are the red Leitner dogs.
Okay. No, I mean the ones that became the Carver dogs?
Yeah, those are all the old red Leitner dogs.
Okay.
So if you look at the Williams and all the Carver dogs, those are off the red nose stuff.
Probably why when you look at a lot of those Carver dogs that are black, you can see red hair.
Yeah, and I'm writing an article coming up for the next APBT magazine, the old family red influence in the Carver dogs, and I'll break it down.
Nice. Can't wait for that.
Show how and a lot of people don't realize. So when Hemphill's getting out of the game, Carver's just getting started, so they knew each other. Yeah. So Carver was like 25 when Hemphill, they talk about it like Carver knew Hemphill and had access to some of the old Hemphill dogs, and before Carver became a breeder, you know, he was still a dogman at the time. They talk about that. So it only makes sense that, knowing Carver being a very intelligent man, and Carver was a gangster. He was a hustler. People, you know, he knew he was more of a dog broker, I would say. He knew where to get the best dogs and how to get them, and he had that street sense about him, huh? He knew how to be slick talking. That's what I got from all the stories I hear about him. And the stories about Carver, man, he was a gangster. He was not someone to be messed with. So a lot of people don't understand that. He was into prostitution, and I mean, people disappeared. It was a big deal. But Carver, he knew how to breed dogs. That's something you can't deny. So you think about it as like, okay, Carver sort of took over these dogs of the early breeders, the Hemphills, the Colbys, the Tudor stuff, and he ended up creating his own family of dogs known as the Carver dogs. Okay. So a lot of the old family red nose blood was blended into the Carver dogs. So when we talk old Carver and new Carver, old Carver, which are the Bolio dogs, Carver ran the old Carver blood off of what was the dog that they claimed the sire of Honey Bunch? I forget his name. Right. So he had old Carver blood before he added Eli to his stuff, before Bully Son and all that stuff. Okay. So you had old Carver, and then you have new Carver. New Carver is when he started blending the Eli blood with his Carver stuff. So you have Eli Carver. All right, Carver. That makes sense. Yeah. I view the Patrick dogs as old Carver dogs. I view like the Banjo dogs as old Carver dogs, the LG dogs as old Carver dogs, where they don't have the Eli in them. They're heavier on the Bolio stuff. And then the new Carver dogs, where they have the Eli, the Bully Son, Eli Jr., the Brandy stuff in them, more of the new Carver blood. But if you break down like Bolio's pedigree, you're going to find old family reds. If you break down the Klaus dogs, so Bert Klaus did blend his cross Hemphill dogs into his Klaus stuff.
Yeah.
Skaggs blood. So that's in all the Klaus dogs, most of the Klaus dogs.
Wow.
So you start seeing those traits, and this is when you start blending them. You know, if you're producing dogs that are coming out red nose with gold eyes and red toenails, you have old family red somewhere in your pedigree,
yes.
or somewhere in gene pool, whether your pedigree shows it or not, because that's where it's coming from. You know, you can sit there and say, no, that's where it's coming from.
Yes.
That's where those dogs came from, Ireland. You know, the Leitner dogs, the Hempfield dogs, the Williams dogs. That's where it's coming from, because that wasn't a common color in the early days.
Wow.
Only a few breeders had them.
That grabs you back. See, you know, when you're an old family red nose guy like yourself, it's like you have to study the history. You know, some of these guys, they only go back 4 generations or something, you know, and they're like, yo, that's where it is. Or maybe, you know, 8 generations and say, hey, that's what their dog is, but they don't know where the history. And so this is a great interview, because we're getting to fill in some of that history that they may not know, even behind the dogs that they're calling their famous dogs today. And they may be thinking old family is totally something different, but this is great, man. I did want to ask you this question, man. Who's your all-time favorite dog when you think of dogs that of the past, or it could be a dog that you even have, or you've even just seen in action? Who would be your all-time favorite dog?
Oh, well, I think if I was going to set a standard of the type of dog I want to breed, you know, I think we all want to breed that world-class famous dog someday in a breeding career. You know, it's not as easy as people think. So, you know, for years, if you were breeding pure old family red, everyone that was breeding pure old family red was trying to reproduce another Ferguson's centipede. He was considered the great one. He was considered the best in the world at his time. But that, you know, we're talking 1940s, 1950s.
Yeah.
Okay. I think in modern time, if I was to breed a dog, I would like to breed something like Grand Champion Buck.
Okay.
You know, Buck sort of set the standard, and it's not to say I don't like the Jeep dogs. I do like the Jeep dogs, and I like the Mayday dogs, and I like the Chinaman dogs, because I have all that, and I like the Red Boy dogs. I have all that. But for me, what set the standard of the type of dog I would like to breed one day is something like Buck. And Grand Champion Buck is you know, a story. You know, one, he beat the best. Yeah, and he didn't do it easy either. He put in some work.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out of retirement. I think he was, 5 or 7 years old in his last one, and went 3.5 hours against Grand Champion Sandman, who was considered a great dog in his own right. People you don't realize how good Sandman was. You know, that's what puts Buck at a high level, is he beat a great dog, and he survived. And, you know, that's the main thing, is you can have a great dog, but a lot of them don't survive.
Yeah, no.
So when I look at the overall accomplishments of Buck, those are the type of dogs with good stamina, good gameness, you know, good mouth. And this is my personal thing, you know.
Yeah.
I studied Buck, and I see the 2 pedigrees on him.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm a breeder, you know, genetics don't lie, pedigrees do. So I always look at the first pedigree and I compare it to the second pedigree. And in reading the traits of Buck and how he looked and how he worked, was he more of a Maloney Toot dog, which would make him a Daibo Bull Family Red Cross?
Okay.
Because that's what Maloney's Toot was. Or is he more of a Bolio dog, which would be a Bolio on the Klaus stuff, Tombstone Bolio. I don't know if on the second pedigree does he have Tombstone in there, but he's definitely a Bolio, heavy bred Bolio dog with Klaus in there. So when you look at, look at the two pedigrees, because they're heavily line bred. He's either heavily line bred Maloney's 2 or he's heavily line bred Bolio Klaus. But what caught me is like, okay, well, which breeding does he represent? And he had a little Zebo in the, I think in the second pedigree, he has a shot of Zebo in there. So when you look at the style, and this is what I studying traits, Bolio dogs were known to ride an ear, ride a nose, very talented, very long-winded, very game, and they'd wear you down. That's what a Bolio dog back in my day was. And if you were looking at competition, you know, if you have a good Bolio dog and then you're going, let's say, into a straight driving Eli dog or a driving dog, what you're counting on is the matchup. Your matchup is my Bolio dog he's going to stay out of trouble. He's going to wear down the Eli dog because the Eli dog's going to run out of energy, and then the Bolio dog takes over and will finish him. But if the Eli dog gets to you, well, he's going to finish you. So, you know, it's all about matchups. Okay. So if you had a true Bolio dog, he dances on his hind legs and he puts his weight on you. He's going to ride that ear. He's going to ride that nose, and he's going to be there until the other dog gets tired, and then he'll take over. Buck didn't match that way. So if you read the match on Buck versus Sandman, they swapped it out, and they said Buck had a heavier mouth than Sandman. And I was like, Buck had a heavier mouth than Sandman. Sandman was heavily bred on the Eli side. Hard-biting dog. And Buck worked him to get worked out of his holds and went, stifle to stifle with him, which is not really a Bolio trait.
I'm thinking Maloney, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, it just, to me, is like, I don't know. I would think he's more of a Maloney Toot style dog, but I don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just basing it on traits because genetics online. You see that once you know the traits of the families, those dogs should perform. If they're family bred and they're line bred, they should perform like those traits. You know, like a really heavily bred red boy dog is going to be very game, long-winded. It's going to be loud, screamer. In the early days, they were not known for heavy mouth, so they were considered, soft mouth dogs. That seems to have changed. But that's what a red boy dog was known as.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, an Eli dog was known as going to be a hard-biting finisher, straightforward driving type dog. And a Bolio dog was known as he's going to be a very talented, long-winded. He's going to ride the nose or the ear, and he's going to wear you down. Once you know the families, they breed that way. So, that's studying your families.
Characteristics, yeah.
So I wanted to get into my crosses, but do you have any other questions before we get into my crosses?
Okay, we're going to get into your crosses right after this question then. I'm going to bring out the American Pit Bull Terrier time machine, and we're going to jump in it real quick, man. And you get to pick what dog you want to bring back and bring to your yard today. It could be any dog out of history, man. What dog would that be?
I don't think you could go wrong with Buck.
Okay.
I really don't.
Okay.
And, he wasn't popular. He became popular, I think, almost maybe at the end of his breeding career or even after he died. When he started, his dogs were like the Gaston dogs, and all those started really taking off. So you think in hindsight is like, the Buck dog to me is, if he was around today, I'd probably be breeding directly to him.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those crosses that you got, man. I saw that you had some Michael Myers, But I'll let you, I saw a couple different ones that I seen you doing, man, but let's go ahead and talk about it, man. You got some good crosses.
So you got to remember, when you're riding in your own lane, you're going to take a lot of heat, or a lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions and not agreeing what you're doing. So a lot of people did not agree with me crossing out my old family reds. You're mixing them up. You're not keeping true to the pure old family reds. They're not seen as.
But you're bringing it back, though, right? I mean, you're bringing it back, though, right?
Well, and this was my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need another red dog.
I can dig it.
I got plenty of red dogs. I need red dogs at work because I hunt. I hunt with my dogs.
I can dig it.
And I like game dogs, and so I say I don't breed old family reds no more. I breed OG Loco old family reds, which are different.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said OG Loco old family reds is my substrain that I created off the old family red.
I mean, you've been doing it long enough, man. It's about time. About time for you to have your own line going on, man. Got some generations.
I really took like the Hempfield Klaus with the Hempfield Wilder, and I blended it over generations, testing, calling, keeping the best, and that's just, it was a simple process. And when you're a breeder, you have a certain type of dog that you like. Okay. So there were certain types of dogs that I liked, and those are the ones I moved forward with. So I think when I got pretty tight, I was down to 2 dogs, and people don't know this. I was down to 2 dogs in 2009. 2009, okay? I was about to get out of them. I had OG Bull and his mom, OG Loco's Copper Socks, and she was spayed. And I was like, I had so many yard accidents. I had buried so many dogs. I had gotten to a point, it's like, you know what, I'm done. Let Bull die out, and that was going to be it. I was going to let Bull and Socks die out. But I think I took a year or 2 off, and then I was like, I've been breeding these dogs already 20-something years, about that time. 1990, 2009, like 19 years, I think. And then this was an epiphany for me. So by this time, I'm getting into more of riding horses, competing, working cattle. And I used to go to all the cattle ranches and watch them cut, sort. And I would see these border collie ranch dogs that would run on top of the cattle. I mean, and fast. They were smart. And
yes, they are. They're smart as hell. Dogs are smart.
And they would gather cattle or herd them. I go, that's a smart dog. I go,
working dog.
Can I breed a working pit bull that I can hunt with other dogs? A game pit bull that I can hunt with other dogs. That was a big challenge for me. Okay, and a lot of my dogs, you couldn't have them around other dogs, but I thought for the challenge was okay. Recognizing they were prosecuting a lot of the old timers, and having fighting dogs was just going to get you up on the radar.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I was like, okay, I need, can as a breeder, and this is what I want to explain to people. As a breeder, you want to keep your dogs as close to their original purpose without breaking the law.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's a challenge. How do you keep your dogs game driven, what they were bred for originally as a breeder, as the original breed, without breaking the law to where you're going to get arrested and get your dogs confiscated?
Can I say something real quick to my audience? That's game right there. For all you guys out there that are, breeding and stuff like that, you heard what he said. How can you get the dog to do what it does, staying with the game without doing something illegal? You got to be careful these days. So I love that you said that, because some of these people need to know that there's guys out there that are doing things with these dogs that aren't illegal. and still trying to stay true to the heart and the game of these dogs. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then, you know, people always say, well, how do you test that? And, you know, how I test my dogs is no one's business. You know what? Every yard has a type of dog, has a standard, and they have their own tests. The dogs I have are the product of my program. Mm-hmm. They're working. Yeah, that's all I can say. But, you know, that was the goal for me was how do I get back in the game? You know, I'm down to 2 dogs. So I started searching. I wanted an old family red dog, and not all. So this is what people don't know. If you don't know pedigrees and genetics, not all old family reds are game working stock. There's only a couple of lines that are. Okay. And I think that's true of any, you know, they have ADVA show dogs, like Eli ADVA show dogs, that haven't been looked at in generations versus the working side of the Eli dogs that are competing at a very high level. Same thing is true with the old family reds. And based on my experience and knowledge, there was only a couple lines that I felt that had the genetics that I could bring back a game working old family red strain, the OG Loco. I call these the OG Loco dogs. What I was banking on was OG Bull was a straight up killer. He was a serial killer. Okay. So I already knew I had the male. You know, I already knew like Bull was game. He killed his sire in a yard accident. He killed everything he got a hold. He killed chickens, cats, possums, you name it. Bull killed it. He was a dog you couldn't really take off the chain. He was going to kill it. But that was Bull. You know, that was just who he was. So I knew whatever I bred him to, he was going to have that gameness in him. And he was aggressive. And he had what I remember about Bull, he had 1.5 inch hangers on him. Which I was like, damn, he has some big fangs, long. Maybe, you know, they were bigger than your average, but they looked like daggers. That's what I remember about Bull. So I go searching. I was like, okay, well, I try to get in contact with my guys down in Southern California. You know, this is before the internet really takes off. So, you know, unless you had their phone number, it was hard to get in touch with them. But I wanted the OFBA blood, and this is something I'll share with people. So the OFBA blood was the game blood that was actually, some of those dogs had points in the Sporting Dog Journal. Mm-hmm. It was one of the strains. Okay, some of it would ran pure, but I think most of the success was crossed. Okay. The pure stuff, but when they crossed it out, those dogs were competitive.
Nice.
A couple 2-time winners. They might even got some champions out of it. So I wanted the OFBA blood because I knew that blood had been working. When OFBA got raided by the feds in 2000, so they shut down, and all the dogs disappeared, and the guy that was running that breeding them, it put a big scare in him, and he didn't want to talk to nobody, and he couldn't. He basically was out of the dogs.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I had heard was, or actually he told me, feds came in and took everything, his computers, his peds, you name it.
Luckily,
and
didn't take
him. In the early 2000s, I started getting out of the Sporting Dog Journal when Jack Kelly sold it because the feds got the membership list. Okay, so you got to remember, many times you're guilty by association. Mm-hmm. Is like, all right, well, you're on this list, and you're friends with this guy, and either you're friends with this guy, and you know we're watching this guy, and so you must be doing something. You know, that's common sense. You know, when you're dealing with law enforcement, which is not my case, but yeah, you get guilty by association. And I was like, I don't need that drama. I don't need that problem. No. So I got away from the Sporting Dog Journal. So I don't follow fast lane dogs like I used to. I just had my own yard, and I was trying to breed a working game pit bull. You know, that was my goal. So I ended up finding a lady in Washington, and she had one of the OFBA dogs. She had an OFBA dog that she had gotten from OFBA. And she was a UKC judge. You know, she wasn't a dog woman, but what I was banking on, gameness, if the dogs were looked at within 3 generations, gameness is in. Beyond 3 generations, rule of thumb is if those dogs haven't been looked at, they're probably not game, or their percentages are real low. But you always bank on, if the grandfather was a proven game dog, he's going to contribute genetics to your pups.
Okay.
Your culling process probably got to be higher. Your testing process got to be higher, but you're going to get something. So what I was looking for was the OFBA blood. I knew those dogs, and I knew Bull had some of the same blood in him, and I was already starting off that he was a proven bulldog, and I felt like, as a breeder, I think I can do it. I felt I could do it. I did it before, so I'll do it again. So I'm starting over in 09. So I ended up buying this whole family red dog. It was, in hindsight, she was a poor specimen. This is, okay, purity. Like, people, let me tell you about purity. It looks good on paper, and you know the genetics are there, but as a functional dog, it's like, other than genetics, that's all she was. She didn't, on paper, she was probably one of the purest Hempfield dogs you could find, and but no, she wasn't. Probably would have got culled in another man's yard, definitely. But I didn't. I picked her up as a brood bitch. I was like, you know what? She has the genes there, so I'm gonna breed her to bull and see what I get, and I'm gonna cull and test hard, pick the dogs, and this is the creation of OG Loco's whole family vets. And I think I did my first breeding in 2011. That was a sort of like a test breeding. Nothing really stood out. I was like, nothing really standing out. Then I bred her again back to bull, and then we got some good working dogs out of that one.
Nice.
And so that started the new whole family, OG Loco family reds. And about this time, I wanted to take people on my journey. Is like, okay, Facebook is on. I created a Facebook page, and it really started off like, hey, I'm gonna teach you guys, or join me on this journey of me developing this new strain of old family reds. That's really how it started.
Yeah.
You know, I was very upfront. I was very honest about my mistakes.
I was one of those guys watching that. So just so you know, I was watching.
Oh, okay. So it was just like, hey, I'm just sharing my journey with you guys. I don't even know if this is going to work out. It's like, but I was just wanted to show like everything I knew. I was just doing it with a new strain of dogs, sort of like what Leitner did. You know, I felt like, hey, if Bill Leitner could do it twice in a career, can I? And so we got some good old family reds, and they were working, and a lot of them took after their dad, and I was able. So people start calling me. It's like, hey, I see you. You know, you work your dogs, you hunt with them. Have you ever tried hog hunting? I go, well, no. Well, send one out to me, and I'll hog hunt it. Yeah, cool. Yeah, sure. And about this time, Kratos, his son, killed Bull. So this is the way it worked. Bull killed his sire, Harley, in a yard accident. And then Bull's son, Kratos, killed Bull in a yard accident. So people go, oh, what was your culling process? I don't know, last dog standing. That's the way it works. I come home and there's only one dog left. So that's sort of the reality of what happened. It wasn't done on purpose. It was just like, these dogs get loose, they're going to bang.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just what happened. So as a result, you know, Kratos became my lead sire, and it was funny. I started about this time. I'm like, okay, I got to get these dogs out to shows. I'm new to Oregon. I don't know a lot of these people. A lot of people think I'm a newcomer.
and I'm sorry, people. Dog world, there's bullies. I'm not a guy to bully, but people want to clown you and they think you're new. You don't know what you're talking about. Ha ha ha! You're running old family. You name it. I'm like, you don't really know me, man. I mean, if you knew me, you'd probably think like, well, funny part is a lot of people did know me. And they're like, no, OG got bulldogs. Like people that knew me when I was down in Southern California. So, oh, okay. Oh, he's not a newcomer.
Yeah.
Like, but it wasn't like, because I was doing my own thing in my own yard. I wasn't out there in magazines and shows. It was just like people that, if you know type thing. It was one of those things. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm starting to meet these people and they go, and this is where it dawned on me. They go, oh, I went to a show here in Oregon and Washington, I think. They go, what do you got? Because I don't know anybody. I go, oh, I got Old Family Reds. And they go, oh, you got those big old 80-pound weight pull dogs? I was like, no. Well, this is where me being out of the game, now the people's perception of what an Old Family Red has changed from what I started off 30 years ago. They're no longer considered game dogs. They're considered crosses. They're considered weight pull dogs. They're big 80, 90-pound dogs. That's the people's perception.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I pull out these little 30-pound game dogs that are, and they were also look different. So they were small, and they were a deep burgundy red with the gold eyes, red toenails. So a lot of people had never seen one in person.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, wow, man, I've never seen one like that. And, you end up meeting people. I ended up getting some ribbons and yada, yada, yada. So there came a point, okay, I got my pure stuff working. Okay, it's game, it's working. I still don't consider them at the same level of, let's say, a fast lane dog. Okay, a modern fast lane dog. I figured like they'll hold their own, but they're game, but they're not going to be able to, compete against some of these.
But they're
fast,
like they're working dogs, definitely.
Right. Yeah, they're working their game, but I think when you're competing, when you look at the Maydays and the Bucks and the Chinamans and those dogs that are competing all over the world at a very top level, those dogs, they're still doing what they're doing. They're competing at that level. And for me, as a breeder, I think I had two things at this point. Was, okay, I got these dogs working. Okay, they're game. Are they producers? And this was a personal challenge. Could I take a pure family red and cross it on a modern day fast lane dog and produce a very high caliber working dog? Okay, that was really a challenge. And I didn't know at the time, but what I was banking on, the genetics were there. That all these fast lane dogs went back to Hempfield, Klaus, Williams, and I had all that blood in a pure form, very highly concentrated and working. Okay, so that's what I was thinking. They're working, they're game, it's concentrated. These dogs, they've been looked at for 30, 25 years. There's no junk in there. They're hunting. They'll hunt.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see, okay, who are the best dogs in the world at that time? And you were either running Mayday blood or you were running Chinaman. It was one or the other, competing at the very top level. Mm-hmm. And I did meet Chico. I throw that out there. So Chico and he judged Kratos at a Washington ADVA show. And I remember he asked me, he goes, is this your first time showing? He goes, oh, dude, I'm not a show guy. I was in there with my dog and I didn't have him stacked or nothing. I go, no, man. I said, I'm not a show guy. And he was, oh, okay. So anyway, at the time I had, well, it was a funny story. I'll share this. So at the time I had just bought OG Knox from Tom Gardner. Okay. So OG Knox was a pup, and I took him to the show, him and OG Kratos. And OG Knox was inbred off Garner's chemo. Okay. And I had studied the chemo dog. And when I was looking to do some outcrosses, the question was, if I add this Chinaman blood to my old family reds, could I produce a high caliber dog? So I chose the chemo of all the Garner dogs. The reason I chose chemo was the stories of what he did down in Texas before Garner had him. So I was reading all the stories of what KFK and Townsend and Cates were doing with the chemo blood. And what I had learned was chemo saved the Niggerino blood. Okay. Because it was just not working at a high level. But when they crossed it into chemo, those dogs came up to a very high level competitive wise. So when I was looking at, all right, I'm going to go with the chemo blood. And this is before chemo was really well known as a producer. Okay. And let me give you a little backstory to why I chose chemo, or why I chose Garner's Chinaman strain. So when I was following Sporting Dog Journal, and a lot of my friends would call me and like, hey, bro, I want to get a fast lane dog. Who should I get one from? Well, they all knew I had the journal. Not everyone had the journal. And I was like, well, you know, there's this dog, man, that he's producing a lot of one-time, two-time winners. And Frisco hadn't really produced a champion or grand champion yet. Mm-hmm. But I remember the old story was where the POR came into play. Like, if your dog is consistently producing 1- and 2-time winners in every litter, that is a great producer. Just, you know, you could be an ROM, but only produce like 3 dogs to get ROM. But if every litter you're producing a 1-time or 2-time winner, that was a great producer. So my thinking was, I told my buddy, hey, I see this Frisco dog. He's producing a lot of 1-time, 2-time winners, being published in a journal. I'd get a dog off Frisco. So my buddy, he ended up buying a dog off Frisco, and he bought one off Little Spike. So he ended up doing that. One off Little Spike and one off Frisco. So when I want to get back in the game, well, the first thing I was like, follow my own advice, right? So I was like, okay, so which is one of the better bred Frisco dogs? And I really like Dynamite. And then I was like, man, I really like Dynamite. But then chemo was starting to show up as a, you know, better producing Dynamite son. So I ended up rolling the dice, and I got Knox. And I showed him at that show. This is where I'm going with the show. I tell Chico, oh, that's a Garner dog. Chico don't, you know, he don't look twice at him. Yeah, it was like Knox didn't win nothing. But Kratos ended up beating, I think, 10 dogs in the ring. He got second under Chico. And I was laughing because people were protesting. Like, they were mad. Like, who is this dude? Because no one knows me. I'm not a show guy. And I pull up with an old family red, and I beat show dogs. And I was like, you want the ribbons back, man? Hey, there's no big deal to me. I just came to have fun, meet people. But it was funny. I was like, walked away, and Kratos ended up having his yard accident shortly after that. So he went blind, and his leg was barely hanging on. So I retired him, the stud. That was the end of, and he was like 30 points off an ADBA championship. Nice. So I could have champed him, and I'm out, but I just retired him. So that's how I met Chico. And that's sort of like, this was weird when, I remember at the show, somebody had a Chosen Few dog. I don't even know who Chosen Few is, because Chosen Few wasn't something I remember being published in the journal. If it was published toward the end when I got out of it. But that wasn't really a kennel that I knew. I knew Southern Kennels because I had followed Mayday coming up. And like the Frisco dog, one of the reasons I chose the Mayday blood was I saw Mayday come up in the journal.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I want to try some of that Mayday blood. And I ended up doing a breeding with Proline kennels. I don't even know if they're still around. Or Pro Pit. Proline Pro. They were in Redding, California. They bred some, they were into the UFC fighting. Guy was a good guy. And we did a breeding, and he had a Mayday White's Tab dog that I bred to. And that was the first time I was able to get Mayday blood in some of my dogs, but I don't have that blood today. But I always wanted to get, try the Mayday blood again. So first I did the Chinaman stuff, and I bred Knox through the OG Loco dogs, and those dogs were bulldogs. It clicked. Those dogs I got them into people's hands, and they're hogging them, and they're putting in work. And one thing about those Chinaman old family red dogs I have, they'll kill you on a nose hold. So the yard accidents that I heard about, and even the way they hunt hogs, I guess they bite so hard just on the nose, they killed other dogs. And it wasn't like a lot of tearing. It was just they grab the face, the nose, and crush it. And that seems to be a trait in those dogs. It's not a trait in my pure old family reds. And Knox himself, he was a face dog, and not criticizing Knox. I guess if he had a weakness was he would bite and hold, and he wouldn't let go. So that was Knox. He would just hold. He didn't work different holds. Where the old family red dogs were very intelligent. They'll learn, they'll adjust.
Yeah.
So when I brought the two together, and we started seeing the traits of this new cross I did, these dogs were dancing on their back legs like a bolio dog. It was like weird is like, oh, they work like a bolio dog. They dance on their hind legs, they grab the muzzle, and they hold on. And I guess they bite so hard they kill dogs that way. It was sort of weird. It was like, huh? How are they doing that? Then the only thing I could think of was the pressure.
Yeah.
Pressure. Yeah. And it's not something that, people think dog fighting is bloody and, no, it was like, and that's what I saw with the old family reds on the dogs that I did find in yard accidents. I was like, how did he die? He only has 4 puncture wounds. It wasn't, and I think that's what changed in my old family reds. Pre-bull, a lot of tearing, very game dogs, but a lot of tearing, a lot of blood. They weren't really finishing dogs, but very graphic.
Okay.
But bull changed that in that those dogs after bull, 4 puncture wounds, that's it. That's all you ever saw. And they think it's internal injuries. And to me, that was a sign they're biting hard. It was just like, they're just biting hard. And the trend I tend to see with those old family reds, front leg dogs. So they were known as, they get into the armpit, front legs. That was their trait, the pures. So where Knox is not, now I'm getting a different style with the Knox dog, is these crosses weren't showing traits like Knox, who was straightforward, grab and hold and wouldn't let go no matter what. And they weren't working front legs like the pure old family reds that get in the armpit and they're very rough, shake up those armpits. They're riding the nose and crushing them.
Okay.
And we saw that in hog hunting too. It was like,
and
they grabbed those.
That's what you want.
Yeah. And they grab those front, that nose, and just hold on the nose. And I get criticism from hog hunters that do this or breed hog hunting dogs is, no, you don't want your dog doing that. He's going to get hurt. You don't want him to grab an ear and hold on to the ear. But if he's grabbing the nozzle of the hog, he's going to end up getting killed. But what we saw with OG Ruger, who was a Puro family red, and OG Ruger became famous in the South, Louisiana. He was in a YouTube video. He was published in the APBT first volume that came out. And Ruger was catching 4 or 5 hogs a month, sometimes 8. They'd go out on the weekends and he'd catch, 4 hogs a weekend. He was putting in work. I mean, really putting in work. I think in his career, he had caught over 100 hogs. And he was only like a 38-pound dog, and he'd be on a 200, 300-pound hog, holding on to the nose. And that hog's he's just holding on, man. And you can see the videos I saw was like he's just holding on, and that hog's just shaking him all over. But Ruger knew, and this is where intelligence comes into play. Ruger knew if I grab that hog's nose, he can't gore me. He can't bite me. And he knew if I grab that nose, I'm not letting go. And as a catch dog that worked because they'd send Ruger in. And Ruger was a cool dog. Is like, this is the first time I really had a dog that could hunt with hounds and not attack the hounds. And so he knew his hogs. He wanted to hog hunt. He loved hog hunting, and
this
he learned to
from that Garner blood.
No, this is pure. This is pure.
Oh,
yeah. Ruger runs in the blood of the Garner crosses. Okay, so he's the precursor. I'm sorry. I went backwards a little bit. But I didn't give a backstory on Ruger and how it plays into the crosses. So Ruger, he's becoming a famous hog hunter. He's showing that intelligence. He's grabbing those. So now we're crossing the Ruger daughters on Knox, okay, the Garner dog. And now we're getting this new trait that is bringing the hard mouth and finishing ability from the Chinaman stuff, but the intelligence from the old family red. And these dog styles change. They ride the nose and they grab the nose and they work it, and they're finishing that way. And that's what caught me as a breeder, because that's the way the bolio dogs used to work. Okay. And I was like, I don't have a lot of bolio in my dogs. Where's this trait coming from? But, I assume it's coming from Frisco's mom's side, because they were working like bolio dogs. Or they still do work like bolio dogs. So, as a breeder, then I'm thinking, I'm studying pedigrees and genetics. It was like, did crossing the Puro family reds on the Frisco blood through chemo, because the Knox was inbred chemo, did for some reason that click with the bolio blood in Frisco? Because now I'm seeing traits I have never seen before.
Very, very. So you're finding very intelligent dogs, like really,
yes,
really smart dogs. That, yeah, I get it. Can hunt with other hounds. Listen to you. If you probably told them to get that hound, they'll probably get the hound too. But you say, hey, no, it's good dogs, man. Really smart. I love those dogs, man. I love them.
Yeah, and that's what we saw. So once I did the Chinaman stuff, I got them a few hands, and people are liking them. Some people are breeding off them in their own programs now. I was like, all right, let me try the Mayday. Okay, so I did it with Chinaman. Now let's try Mayday. So I remember one of friend of mine, he called me one day. He goes, hey, bro, you got to breed to this Michael Myers dog. I don't even know who Michael Myers is. I don't even know who Melkamp is, because again, my time was before this modern era.
Yeah.
I knew who Garner was, because Garner's been around forever.
Yeah.
But I didn't know Melkamp. I didn't know Chosen Few. I didn't know a lot of these people. And plus, I was on the West Coast, so I only knew what was like regional. A lot of it's regional. So a lot of that blood I didn't know. So now I was like, he goes, yeah, he's up by you. He's in the Pacific Northwest. And he goes, I'll get you the guy's number. So anyway, I ended up meeting Buck City. and called him, hey, bro, you know, I'm sure he was like, "Oh, family Reds, what?" I'm sure that's what he was. Yeah, I'm sure he was like thinking that at the time. But anyway, I was like, "Look, I'm going to pay you. I got cash. I want to just breed your dog. He's a good dog." But what I liked about Michael Myers was his pedigree. Okay, it was like I was like, he's bred. I mean, he has Mayday to his littermate sister, Dragon Lady, produced Lady Doll. So you have that genetic, pure genetic Mayday blood. But he also has the Mayday to the Buck daughter.
Yep.
Okay, so he has that out on Buck, and I'm like thinking, oh damn, I get the best of both worlds, Mayday and Buck, and I'm gonna cross it in, and that's what I'm thinking, you know, pedigree alone. So I ended up going up and breeding one of my dogs to Michael Myers, and I really like Mike, man. He was like this is like a dog you could take to the park. He was a friendly dog, just a very loving dog. And I was like, man, I could own a dog like him. He's just a cool dog. And that's what I liked about Mike. So it wasn't so much his reputation. It was like, I like the pedigree. I like the dog. That's why I bred to him, you know? And so we bred to him and got some dogs off him. And I got a son of his right now, OG Loco, who's turned out to be a really good producer. Wedo's producing.
What does he look like?
Like Mike, just like him. He's cream colored, red nose. Looks just like his dad. I think I posted a picture once of Wedo next to Michael Myers. I'm holding Michael Myers. I'm holding Wedo. And people are like, oh, wow, they really do look alike. Oh, yeah, they really do look alike, a lot alike. Nice. So a couple of those dogs, you know, by this time now I have some OG family. I got some guys that I'm working with, guys that are, you know, really in the woods hunting and stuff. Yeah. So we're, you know, they're getting access to some of this blood, you know. And I kept Wedo and Izzy, which were litter mates. One of the young guys that I still work with, he ended up getting two of the sisters. And then another guy I work with got one of the brothers. The brother went on a hog hunt and collapsed at an hour 10, died. But yeah, they said he didn't quit. No, he just collapsed. So he was there till his last breath. So we didn't get anything off him.
Dogs gotta really be conditioned for that, for them hog hunts, man. Huh.
Yeah. He just gave it his all.
Yeah.
You know, I guess is what I understand. So the other two produced some really good dogs, or I don't know what happened to the one sister, but one of the sisters was bred to some of the Buck City dogs. So one of the guys started breeding more toward the Mayday side, and he produced some good dogs, man. I mean, I was like, what? So those Mayday Old Family Red crosses, when you're breeding more toward the Mayday side, now you have the Old Family Red as the out. We got some really good dogs off that.
Nice. And nice.
So now you're seeing it on different yards, you know, different yards, and it's working for them. And it's a great thing when you have a family, because it's like, hey, I got something that is working really good, and you want a puppy?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So they send it back. So I just got one the other day. She's off of BCK's Little Mayday. And Little Mayday now brings the Barracuda blood to my yard. So crossed on the Michael Myers Old Family Red female, Izzy, bred her to Little Mayday. So now I have 3/4 Mayday, 1/4 Old Family Red. So that's something new to my yard. But I really like the little Mayday blood dog. I'm probably going to breed her in a couple years. Back to some of my pure stuff, and then to my Mayday. Back to her uncle, which would be Widō Loco. So it'd be a uncle niece breeding. But I'm one of those guys. Is I get pups and I give them till they're 2.5, 3 years old, and if they prove themselves to be breedable, they'll be in the breeding program. If they don't, they won't. But this is something I have high hopes on.
Nice.
We'll get her. The one I'm really liking is I have an old family red boy cross, and she's off the haymaker stuff. Her sire was Dirt Road's Bingo. He's an inbred son of haymaker, and that was something I really wanted to put together with Dirt Road. And
just curious, I seen you with a black dog.
Yeah, that's off my Chinaman stuff,
Okay.
the knock stuff. But I have a cream female. She's about a year old. And I hadn't done the red boy cross yet. She's my first one. But at a year old, this dog's a screamer. She's game screamer. I was like, I don't know if I could have a yard of them. I'd get reported. I was like, they wouldn't shut up. But she's everything that you see that you would think is a red boy dog. She's a screamer. She's high strung, high prey drive. I mean, it's like you can't even tell she has old family red in her because the genes clicked, and I think that's what a click is. When you're doing a click and you're doing a cross, you don't want to breed to a dog that's going to take away from what the traits of what that dog is. Definitely. So if you're breeding and you're producing dogs that work like a Chinaman, let's say I do a Chinaman, and those dogs work like a Chinaman, or they work like a red boy, or they work like a Mayday, that's a click because you didn't take anything away from those traits you were trying to capture. Mm-hmm. And that's what I try to look at is the old family red becomes like what's the universal blood? Is that O positive? That you can cross into any human and a transfusion. The old family red, because it runs in all the fast lane strains, I think that's why it clicks. I think that's why I'm not losing anything. My dogs are getting better. And part of getting better is when you breed family, you lock in traits, okay? So, this is why certain strains are known for certain traits, because they've been locked in. So my dogs, let's say, are intelligent and game, but maybe they're lacking mouth and finishing ability. By me crossing with the Mayday and the Chinaman stuff, I've introduced those Mayday and Chinaman traits into my family of dogs now, and those traits are showing up. So now these dogs are a more complete dog. They're smart, intelligent, game with mouth and finishing ability. And that's the progression of the breed that I'm seeing in my dogs. Now, I always keep a pure strain. Because you need that pure strain for the crosses.
Right.
Okay, so ideally what you want to do is keep your pure strain. You just want to keep them game and working. That's really all I look for in the pure blood. Is it game and working? Can I do stuff with them? And then I use them as a catalyst to cross into my crosses, and it just works because now they're all cousins. They're all on the same family tree. So I don't know. I didn't mean to go off on that.
No, man. I you know what? It goes interesting for especially breeders, people who are breeders, because I catch that sometimes. You guys are breeders, so you guys get really in depth with that stuff, man. But I do want to, kind of ask you some more questions, man, that, I wanted to ask you, like, so when you're not dealing, just kind of get to know OG Loco, when you're not dealing with the dogs, what else do you usually be up to, man? You got any other hobbies or anything?
Yeah, it's funny because I guess I'm a jack of all trades master, and a lot of it is the way I was raised. And I started doing these weekly updates to change the perception of Chicanos. Okay. Everyone wants to say, I'm a real this, I'm a real that, I'm a real this. You know, are you a real biker? Are you a real cowboy? Are you a real gangster? Are you a real dog man? And I was like, you know what? If I really do it, I guess I'm real. It's not like I'm saying I'm doing something that I don't do. It's like, yeah, I do it. So I think growing up in Southern California, and not all Chicanos are cholos or gangbangers.
No.
Okay. I'm fourth generation American. Yes, a lot of the Chicano culture, especially when you're raised in that culture, uh, a lot of those customs, survival instincts, whatever you want to call them, that's just the way you were raised.
Right.
I didn't know. I thought everyone ate beans and rice until I was a teenager. I was like, oh, people don't eat. No, shit, it was beans and rice and tortillas for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We were poor. I didn't know I was poor, but I thought everybody ate beans, rice, and tortillas until I started meeting people people eat biscuits and gravy. I didn't know that.
Hey, listen, my ex-wife, her grandfather, because he grew up on beans, he liked sapapillas and beans. He had to have it once a week. So when I stayed with them for a little short time, well, I say about maybe a year and a half, once a week we had beans. We definitely had to have beans. It was something that it was kind of like, I guess it kept him grounded, where he didn't forget where he came from. Until the day he died, once a week, his wife always made beans. She always rolled tortillas. I was like, people roll tortillas? And so I didn't know that either, just coming from a whole different culture. And it was great, man. I was over there eating. I mean, actually, they gave me one time, they handed me a tortilla and said, just put the green chili on it. And I was like, just put the green chili, no meat, nothing. They were like, yeah, and I learned some stuff, you know what I mean? So, it's great to know about cultures, man, and hearing you speak about, Chicanos ain't just that, there's a lot to the Chicano culture, man, and that, and being around them. I grew up in Las Vegas. If you ever been on a street called 28th Street, it was just a majority of Latinos and Hispanic people, all different. I've seen some people that were from Nicaragua and Mexico around there, and just being around them, you see different cultures. And I've always kind of wondered, when you said Chicano, can you explain that, since we're talking about it, what Chicano, the word, means?
Yeah, and I'll start off with this, and then I'll explain it. So when I moved from I was born and raised Southern California, 31, 32 years. I had never left the basin. I have family all over Southern California, cousins, second cousins. I mean, it's been there for almost 100 years now. So all I knew was Southern California culture, Chicano culture, and Chicano is an American thing. People don't understand this. It is not a Mexican thing, okay? It is developed in the barrios of Southern California and the Southwest, okay? That's really predominance. So when you're raised Chicano, you have influences from old Mexico because that's where your original family migrated from. But you're not raised in Mexico, so you don't have Mexican traditions. Okay, you have Mexican influence, but a lot of it is also American. It's like it was developed here in America. So you become what we call a Chicano. Is like you're not Mexican, but you're not white, but you're American. You're a blend of both worlds. That's why I run a Mexican American flag on my motorcycle jacket. Is I'm Chicano, man. I'm 100%. I'm all about it, and I don't deny where I come from. But does that mean I'm a gangbanger? I'm a cholo? Or no, I'm not. I'm a Chicano. That's all I am. So I think growing up in Southern California, I lived in the barrios as a kid, and I guess had I stayed, I used, I was born in East LA, East Los Angeles. My father was born in East Los Angeles. My grandmother was born in East Los Angeles. It's Chicano culture. And then I remember living in some gang neighborhoods as a kid, like the Happy Homes, and I lived in the Happy Homes, and then I lived in West Covina, and then I lived in South Ontario, which is where I went to high school. And then I ended up moving to Irvine when I went to college. I lived in Irvine, actually. Now I took a step up. I'm living like in South Orange County, thinking I have money.
For a little while, so I know exactly where he's at.
And then I bought my first home in Victorville in like 1990. So I lived in Victorville. Then I lived in Lucerne Valley, which is on the backside of Big Bear. And then ended up having a little stop in Sacramento. I wasn't in Sacramento very long. Then I ended up coming to Southern Oregon, where I've been 25, 27 years now. So this is where Chicano sort of come into play, is people have their perception. And I guess I didn't really see it till I left Southern California. Okay. It's like, yeah, Chicano, we were like surfers, rockers. You always had friends that were probably in gangs. And that's the one thing. A lot of my friends were in gangs, and people are, why are you friends with that dude? Why are you hanging out with those people? I go,
because they're my friends.
Those are the people I grew up with. I mean, they're still the same kid we used to play ball with. And, yeah, they gravitated toward gangs, but I still know, like, we were kids playing together. We grew up, we hung out. You just don't get caught up. People don't understand. If you want to survive, just don't get caught up.
Yeah.
They all knew, like, OG don't gangbang, that was their thing. And a lot of it not getting caught up. And I guess if you want to survive is like, you got to know to remove yourself from situations. Yeah. You just got to go, hey, man, it's just time for me to go. And that's just not getting caught up. And I think the great thing about not clicking up with anybody was I got along with a lot of people from different neighborhoods. So, I'd get invited to parties in different neighborhoods and different gangs. And as long as you're respectful, as long as you know how to carry yourself, you're not looking for trouble, and you're respecting you're in their territory. And then when things start looking negative, you just got to know when to leave. People don't understand
all the time. I grew up with some people I didn't even know were in gangs. I did not know they were in gangs till I got older. I'm like, wait, I didn't know you was from there. Because if they was just straight up real people, you know what I mean? They knew how to conduct themselves in a manner that just acted like a regular man and woman, So I tell people all the time, there's a lot of gang. Just because you see stuff on Facebook and the internet doesn't mean everybody is like that because they came from California, or Vegas and places like that. I've met plenty of gangbangers or I won't say bangers, but members who lived pretty decent lives that I was like, shoot, I didn't know you was from that gang. But, you just grow up around people. And so, you're like, hey, that's my friend. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why you hang out
and I
with
think,
I don't know.
I didn't see it until,
didn't.
Yeah, I didn't really see it till I left. you know, and now I'm riding, and I'm a Chicano biker. I guess that's who I identify with. Okay,
I dig it. I've seen that.
I'm not an outlaw biker. I'm not a gangbanger cholo. Chicano biker is a blend of those cultures. So a lot of my styling and a lot of the influences came around riding Harleys in Southern California. You go to all the runs. I've been to Laughlin. I went to a lot of runs.
Okay.
Back in Southern California. So you're around Chicano bikers, and they're going to influence you, your style, how you carry yourself. You're just around it. You sort of pick it up. But because a lot of it is these guys that ride Harley, and you got to remember when I started off, Chicanos or Cholo bikers didn't ride Harleys. They rode lowriders. So when I'm riding, they're like, Mexicans don't ride Harleys, and that was a big culture shock for people.
Yeah, no,
this is how OG Loco became.
That's why when you said chosen few, I was thinking my mind was thinking something totally different when you were saying chosen few, and I was like, wait. But yeah, I've been around the bikers growing up, and I seen it. I seen black bikers and I seen Latino bikers, but they weren't really like considered like gang members. Nowadays you'll see a lot of that kind of crossed over a little bit more.
So what I tell people, before Sons of Anarchy, before the Mayans were all published, before a lot of the culture spread in pop culture, there was OG Loco. Okay, and people I don't really share my story of what I went through, how I was tested, and you go through a lot, especially when you're new. Like you're just like, I was new. So I'm carrying now, like I remember talking to, I'm riding a biker. The reason I gravitated more toward the bikers too was I wasn't, I'm living in a new area. I don't really know people, but I rode, and I rode hard. Okay. And I pulled up in Oregon. I'm bald headed with piercings and tattoos, and I'm Mexican, and my Harley I'm riding is lowered, and it looks different. So a lot of the bikers, when I moved up here, this is pre media or pre pop culture, they had, unless you were from Southern California, you really hadn't seen or met one.
Yeah.
It was like, no, Mexicans don't ride Harleys, you ride lowriders. That was the perception. And they used to all call me homie. It was like, nah, I'll tell you what, I know you don't know better, but you don't really call someone homie unless you're from their neighborhood. They're your homie, like you're down for them. But then you start meeting, hey homie. I was like, I ain't your homie. So it sort of developed, and this was the funny part, because I'm riding, I'm meeting people, and I said, just call me OG. Well, no one knows what OG means. And I remember a lot of people used to ask me, what does OG stand for? Because you got to remember, I'm not living in Southern California no more. But a lot of these people that I was running into thought they were gangsters. I go, look, trust me, I know gangsters. You ain't a gangster. You may be telling people you're a gangster. You may be running things around here, but I know you're not a gangster. Okay. I'm more gangster than you'll ever be. And I never joined a gang, but I was raised in the community, and I was raised in the culture that I know how to handle myself. And, growing up, you did have, problems with other people. And, what I try to explain to people is there's no winners, there's no losers where I grew up. There's only suspects and victims. You're either a suspect one day, but you could be the victim in this, because really it becomes a preemptive strike. Mm-hmm. It's who can get to who better, who catches, and sometimes numbers. But there's no winners, there's no losers. is so I move up to an area like I'm gonna come and, you know, beat you up or try to, you know, scare you. You ain't gonna scare me. You're gonna piss me off, and you're gonna start a war, because when I'm from, it doesn't end. It doesn't stop. You know, that's the way you're raised. And I remember I first moved up here. I got attacked by two guys. And I was like only here 6 months. They, you know, two guys attacked me, and I was at a horse show with my kids and my wife, and they're going to kill me. They threatened to kill my kids. And I was like, man, I just moved away from this shit, and here it's starting. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think for me, it was like, okay, all I want to do is be left alone. All right, you want to go there? Shit. You know, that's where it started.
It's like,
and then a lot of these people are like, well, why isn't he afraid? I was like, what option did you give me? Yeah. So anyway, you get tested along the way. After a while, people realize he's not looking for trouble. Just leave him alone. And because I just ride. That's all I do. I ride. You know, everybody got to remind me they're running things and shit like that. I'm like, hey, man, I'm just riding. That's all I do. I really do. I was like, I don't commit any criminal activity. I ride hard. I like to have a good time. And I went to a lot of biker runs. So I think for the culture, for me, now I'm living in the area, I'm different. They're looking at me, you know, and you know, it's like you relate, because a lot of the values that I grew up with in honor, respect, loyalty, being a man to survive in Southern California, I also saw in the biker community. Okay. And as long as you know, respect those boundaries, you get along with everybody.
Yeah,
you know,
shout outs to the biker community. You know, I know quite a few of them, and you know, you got just like anything in life, you got some good guys that are in the biker community. You got some dudes who, you know, you don't want to mess with. You got some dudes who, hey, they cool today, tomorrow they could be. It's just life, man. You know, you learn there's some good people in the biker community. So shout outs to the biker community. I want to make sure that they, you know, and there's a lot of dogmen that are in the biker community too.
Yeah, matter of fact, I've met a lot of the, you know, it seems to be a very common thing, is if you're a biker, you probably have pit bulls, you're in the pit. I've met a lot of dogmen that were actually bikers. You know, yeah. They're bikers. So you have that relationship. You develop, oh, you ride? Yeah, I ride. And, you know, oh, you got pit game dogs? Yeah, I got it. So you end up finding more in common than you have differences.
Well, now that we get to know OG Loco a little bit, I want to bounce back to the dogs just for a second, man. And I wanted to, this is a part of the show that we call Quickfire questions. I just kind of ask you one or the other. You kind of can pick which one that you like, or you can, you know, say both. So we'll go ahead and go with it, man.
All right.
Slap meal or carpet meal?
Oh, I like both, and they both work differently, and you got to know how to work a dog. So a carpet meal will build strength, but you can't run your dog too long on a carpet meal because it will burn up kidneys. People don't know that. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know how to use a carpet meal, I would probably recommend you just use a slap meal. Okay. A slap meal, if you want to do endurance, like freewheeling slap meal, and that dog will just actually trot. You don't have to run it. If you could get them to trot for an hour or two, you're going to build up stamina and endurance. So I like the slap meal for stamina, endurance, and wind. I like the carpet meal for muscle and power. Okay. And you got to know how to use them both and mix it up. My favorite is the spring pull. Is like the spring pull works more muscles in the dog than any other thing you can do with them.
Okay. How about the collar or harness?
I like the harness when you're working a dog because you want resistant training. Okay, so it's like, you know, if you work out and stuff, the harness, you want that dog always giving you a little resistance, and it don't have to be a lot of resistance. But on the collar, it's going to be choking itself. It's going to be pulling on the neck. On the harness, the resistance is on the body.
Right.
So the way you build muscle is through resistance training. And if your dog is pulling on that harness, and even if you're walking them a mile or two, you may not think it's a good workout or they're not tired, but it is having effects on that dog on building muscle. Resistance.
You know, I've tested both of them, and when definitely I feel like when the dog had the collar on, it was building some workout on that neck. But when I put that harness on him, I noticed the belly started to tuck more. Like, you know, he got just more definition. And that's just how I feel. I feel like the dog gets, I'm not saying that the collar is, I still think the collar is good for certain things, especially if you got him, you know, chained up. But I wouldn't put a dog in a harness on the chain. But when I'm doing some work with them, especially like, you know, hooking him to a bungee or something, I feel like he gets a good tuck in his stomach and gets a little more definition on the harness. So I agree with you on that. How about mouth or game?
I need gameness because you could always add mouth, but you cannot add gameness to mouth. Okay. So if you start off with a clean slate, and as long as that dog's game, you could always add mouth to it. Okay. But if you're breeding dogs for mouth and they don't have gameness, it's hard to add gameness to when they've already lost it. It's one of those traits. That's why testing becomes important and preserving it and selection. It's one of those traits is once you lose gameness, it's very hard to get it back. So it's always like start with gameness, and then it's like customizing a car. If you want to add mouth, if you want to add wing, as long as that dog's game, he's going to go.
I can feel you on that. And you know, for a long time, a lot of people, I used to say mouth. Of course, you know, because if you've seen it, it's like devastating. Like, whoa, I did not know that dog could just break stuff like that, but I get it nowadays. How about kibble or run? I mean, or raw. Kibble or
if I could afford it, I would do raw, but I can't afford it feeding what am I, 12, 13 dogs right now. So I try to mix it up. You know, my dogs have a staple of kibble. I try to use a high, good protein, 21, 22% protein kibble. I feed them once a day, 2 cups each. And then, you know, when I do have raw, I feed it raw. But a lot of times, like if I hunt, I'll butcher what I catch and feed it to them. Yeah, a lot of people think, you know, oh, you just hunt for the hide. No, I actually quarter it up. And especially like I'll hunt raccoon and nutria, and you quarter it. It's just red meat at that time, and it's a very lean meat, and the dogs think it's a treat.
Yeah, no, I'm totally about that. My wife she said this line to me. She says, "Don't muzzle the ox," and I was like, "What?" She was like, "The dog earns it, and the dog should get some. It's worthy of it's worthy of its work, you know." So that's good, man. That's good that you let it get some of it. How about chain spot or kennel run?
I have them both, and my dogs love chain spots. And you know, and I try to explain this to people. Oh, it's cruel to chain your dogs. Well, no. My dogs love running the chain. They can see other dogs. They're not isolated. I don't get them to where they can touch contact with each other, but you'll see them socializing with each other. And in the kennel, they start walking in circles. I remember a friend telling me he had done a lot of time. And I used to ask him, man, what do you do when you're on 23-hour lockdown? I remember him, I think he was looking at my horse. He goes, see what your horse is doing in your corral? I had a corral. She was just walking in circles. He goes, that's what you do. And I was like, well, I see it with the dogs. Okay. When the dogs are in a kennel, they just start walking in circles. And mentally, it's not stimulating. Okay. You become isolated. And so the kennels, you'll start seeing them, they'll start biting the chain link. They want to get out. And you would think, well, you could run free in a kennel. Why do you want to get out? Well, to them, they're looking at a cage. You know, so I only keep mothers and puppies in a kennel. But once they are chain broke, they're ready for the chain, then they go on the chain. But I also work my dogs, so it's not like they're on the chain all the time. I have to manage which dogs I could actually let loose together. I got some dogs that I can't even let loose because they're gonna hit another dog.
You gotta like put the leash on it.
Yeah, it's like I gotta take it out to somewhere. And the males are gonna pretty much hit each other. I have a couple females that they're gonna hit, but the younger dogs, before they mature, I think that's the funnest time I have with them, because you can still work with them. They still want to please you. They haven't really, that switch hasn't really gone off yet. Once the switch goes off in them, it's every time they're loose.
Yeah,
and there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay. How about tug of war or fetch?
I like tug of war. Yeah. I think I use two things to play with my dogs. I get actual natural cowhide, untreated, okay? Or I buy untreated raccoon hide off the eBay. You can buy them. You want the untreated stuff that still smells. Okay, you don't want it treated, because they're gonna have some blood on it. There'll be traces of blood and scent on it still. So I like to get a rope, put 2 hides, and my dogs are competitive, and they'll get into a tug of war with each other, and it's funny when you watch them. They don't want to lose. They actually start like, oh, okay, you got it this time, and they work harder. And I think for me is, one, I enjoy working my dogs. 2, I think the dogs really enjoy it, because as soon as they see me bring the tug out, they're flipping out. So I like the tug of war. The fetch I can only do probably with 1 dog at a time, and I have to be in the middle of nowhere where there's no other animals around. But with the tug of war, I'm able to work 2 dogs. So I find that. The other thing I use is a cowhide on a spring, on a tug spring. So we'll play tug of war, sort of like a flirt pole on a spring. And once they bite it, then the resistance training comes into play. So now they're working that spring like on a spring pole. Yeah. So the dogs tend to really like that. It doesn't really put a lot of strain on me. You can't remember, I'm working like 5-6 dogs. You get tired.
Yeah.
You know, it's a workout for me, and I'm getting older too. So it's like, man, the older you get, it's just like, these dogs are high maintenance.
Hey man, you know what? You don't look it, man. That's why when you started talking about the 70s, I was like, when you was like, I got my first dog in '83, I was like, that's when I was born.
Yeah, I'm old. I really am an OG, man. So yeah, I'm an old dude.
You might have to put a triple. You might have to put 2
triple OG.
All right, man. But how about road work or hiking?
I like hiking. You know, I'm very social. I do a lot of outdoors activity. And So like I'll hike up to waterfalls. I'll take a dog with me. I go, when people go hunting, I probably hunt more than I catch, just because I just enjoy it. I just enjoy taking, and I do some pretty risky stuff. Like I go out in the middle of the night. We got mountain lions out here, and I live on the river, so the lions come down and hunt the deer. And I've been out there in the middle of the night. You can't see anything, and you feel your hair raise on you. Like there's something out here watching me. But I always feel confident because I only carry a knife, and I typically have a dog. So I really believe, if I do run into a situation, my dogs they're going to hit.
Yeah.
They're going to see the lion or any danger long before I see it. And
I hope that I know you said they had game. I hope they got some out.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably die because, lion will kill you. But I think two good bulldogs on a lion, I've seen it happen that they could take out a lion. But we got 220 pounder lions right across the street from me. The ranch kills them about once every 2 years. And you're like, damn, that thing was across the street. They go, yeah, it was killing our cattle and we had to put it down. So the lions do. And then when I moved in, the neighbor, I think the dogs keep the lions. They keep a lot of wildlife off the yard because wild animals don't want to draw attention to themselves. But the guy who used to live here said lions would come down the hill, because I live on the river, and they walk down to the river through the yard. And you have livestock, but they wouldn't bother the horses or cattle. They were more after the deer, but they have walked through the yard before. So I think when you're running dogs, they'll avoid the yard. They just don't want to hassle with the dogs. So yeah, that's my thing is I'm a hunter, but I just enjoy hunting. I like to go like, man, what a primitive man out here with his dogs and his knife. You gotta sort of make it even.
Yeah, I just dig that, man. I don't know if you checked out my interview with Madison Parker, but if look him up, man. He was very heavy into the primitive hunting. That's what he did. He taught Navy SEALs, but he also does a lot of primitive hunting. Make spears and stuff like that, and knives, and go out there with slingshots. So that's cool, man. He said, "I'm out there with the knife." That's right.
Yeah. I got some dogs that they're not good hunters, and not that they're not good hunters. It's like people sometimes are shooting when I'm out hunting, and it's like fireworks. So I got some, they're gonna run home as soon as they hear that gun. Like, I'm out of here. And I was like, oh, I can't take you hunting. So you really need part of having a good hunting dog is, one, he has to be a good hunter, but you're gonna run into situations that your dog gotta trust you and you gotta listen to me. So if I say, hey, we're good, they're not shooting at us. Maybe they were, I don't know, because sometimes the dogs do run into people's yards. Oh, here's one. I go hunting on the river. We're hunting nutria sometimes I do it in the city. And the dogs run through homeless camps, and the homeless people get pissed off. They start cussing. Damn dog run through our camp. But they're living right on the river. They're living in the bushes. Yeah. So that happens a couple times. And so
it's got to be a good laugh, though.
Yeah. I've had people report me like, oh, you're out here killing cats with your dogs. Like, that ain't a cat, that's a nutria, that's a rat. Oh, okay, but yeah, people are funny, man.
Ratting, that's cool too, man. So OG Loco, man, if I could ask you this question, man, that's about legacy. And I'm always weird with that word, but what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind on the APBT community?
I think is what inspired me to keep going. It's really keep going. Why do you commit to a lifestyle? You want to be great. You want to be remembered. What did you contribute? And I've met a lot of dogmen that were probably, I mean, they were good dogmen in the day, but you don't know who they are. You won't remember them. They got no families. It's just like, I mean, they, they make their mark and then they're gone type thing. And I think as a breeder, you know, when I was coming up and you study Colby, Leitner, Corvino, Patrick, Gardner, all these breeders that, yeah, you're going to remember them 100 years from now.
Yeah.
You know, they left their legacy. I think that's a legacy. Will people, I guess when it's all said and done, hopefully they'll talk about the OG Loco family Reds as some of the last working old family Reds that were alive, and that they'll remember them the way they remember Hemphill, you know, because now we're going to deal with a new generation after me.
Yeah.
That they'll think back and no, the OG Loco old family Reds, they were bulldogs, man. Those were old, that went back to the old Irish blood, the original blood. I think if that's the mark I left, and I preserved them and I made them better and I kept them working, I think I did my part.
Okay, OG Loco, man. What's the biggest myth about red-nosed dogs or American Pit Bull Terriers in general that you wish more people understood?
I think the biggest myth is that they're stupid game or they're stupid dogs. Is like, yes, it's like anything. You have certain dogs that they have one thing on their mind, and as soon as they get loose, you know, you really can't do nothing with them because that's what they're going to do. They're going to go straight at another dog or animal. You can't do a whole lot with them. And to me, that's more of an intelligence thing. I think the American Pit Bull Terrier, you know, when is really an intelligent dog, a smart dog that'll give its life for you. It'll die for you.
Yeah.
And the old pit bulls, you know, on the scratch line, you know, when that dog is ready to quit, it's exhausted, it has nothing left, it's taken a beating. That last scratch was for its owner. That last scratch was, you know, you read the stories, and I think of the old Tudor line. This is what really set me on the old family red nose, or actually the pit bull. So Earl Tudor went into Bob Hempfield in 1930s, 1940s at a big convention in Oklahoma. And it was the old Leitner blood versus the new Leitner blood. Okay. So Hempfield was handling Cersei Jeff, which was the old red-nosed Leitner blood. And then who was it? Runyon's Imp. Earl Tudor was handling Runyon's Imp, which was the new Leitner blood. So it was the black dogs versus the red dogs. Leitner was the foundation breeder for both the strains. That's what made him a great breeder, is he created two strains. Okay. And so it was a classic match, and Cersei Jeff.
I wonder if Leitner was sitting there thinking it could go both ways, and I should kind of still feel good even if I lose.
I think he was, because he was there, and it was. I think what I had read, he had told them the Leitner dogs of each strain are great in their own right. Okay, so he wasn't really taking sides. Mm-hmm. So in this story, Hempfield beats Tudor. Okay, Cersei Jeff kills Runyon's Imp, and Hempfield is being a little cocky. And in the story, he tells Earl Tudor, he goes, "I bet I could get Cersei Jeff to scratch to a dead dog," because Runyon's Imp was lifeless. So he takes that bet, and Cersei Jeff comes out of the corner and hits a dead dog, which is still a rare thing, because unless a dog's fighting back, a lot of these, you know, it's for a dog to hit a dead dog or a lifeless dog, that dog has to be really game. Okay. Their prey drive's high. They don't care. live or dead, they're going to
Straight
hit
finish
it. Yeah. And so anyway, they pry off Cersei Jeff, and Tudor picks up Runyon's imp, takes him in the corner. Okay, the dog's limp; it's basically dead, and somehow does all kinds of preaching, makes a big old scene, and Runyon comes out of the corner, scratches, crosses the line, and takes a hold of Cersei Jeff, and dies. Because the dead game. That's where the dead game came from.
Mm.
So Tudor tells Hempfield in front of everybody at the convention, you just showed me a live dog scratched to a dead dog. I just showed you a dead dog that scratched to a live dog. And that's where the term dead game came from. It was dead game. He scratched to his death. And that's what took. You don't have to be a winner to be respected as a bulldog, because giving your life for your owner and scratching to your death was probably seen more as a higher value than the winner. Mm-hmm. And Tudor sort of set that straight with Hempfield. And to me, that's what I've seen in these dogs, is when they love you so much and they're committed to you as their owner, that on that last breath, if you ask them, they'll do it. They'll come back from death to scratch for you. And I think that was what has kept me with this breed.
There's no magic to these dogs. They just stand on their own merit.
Right. And I think that's what people misunderstand, is it's not that the pit bull's a fighting dog. It's a dog that'll fight to its death for you as an owner.
Right. Okay, I have one more question for you, OG Loco. If someone, I'll say young, but they're looking to get into the old family red-nosed dog specifically, what's one principle or lesson you'd want them to understand first?
I would say the game bred pit bull is different than any other bully breed. It's different than Amstaff, staffs. It's different than bullies, XL, small bullies. I don't think everyone should own a game bred pit bull. Okay. It's like owning a dog, or it's like having a car and then having a drag car. It's having a motorcycle, having a race motorcycle. Okay. Not everyone should be on those things. Not everyone should be behind the wheel, is because you're now going up another level of dog. Okay. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to know what these dogs are about. You have to know what game dogs are about. You can't get mad at a dog that's just doing what it's bred to do. And, there's many times I come home and, things happen and people go, are you mad? I go, no, he's doing what he bred to do. How do you get mad at a dog who's doing what he's bred to do? I had my dogs the other day, went under the house and ate my kittens. I mean, ate them, didn't just kill them, swallowed them and everything. And I remember the family was, aren't you mad? I was like, what am I going to do? Okay. It was my fault. I didn't know we had kittens under the house. So I should have been more responsible. And I think as an owner, you have to take ownership. If you're going to own these dogs, you have to manage them accordingly. You have to be responsible because you are accountable. I chain my dogs because they're going to get shot if they get loose. Okay. They get in the neighbor's yard, they're going to get shot. They get loose, I'm going to have a problem.
Right.
But I accept that responsibility of managing them. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people think they're nanny dogs. And a lot of people think, no, you're going to change them. It's the way you raise them. It's the environment.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
It's like, It's the way it's in their DNA. It's who they are. It's like, I'm a big believer in this. I guess a man is a man and a punk is a punk. You're either born a man or you're born a punk. It's the way you're wired. It's your DNA, you know. The same thing with a dog. A dog's born game or it's not game. You can't make a dog game. It's genetically already wired to be game. All you can do is guide it. So it's either born game or it's born a cur. It's, you know, it's just what it is. What we don't know as breeders is which one's game and which one's a cur until they're tested. But they're already game. They're born game because it's in their DNA. Or they're born a cur because it's in their DNA. It just may have not been. I mean, there's champions out there that are probably put in a situation to where they're truly tested. You know, they were never really tested. Would they have curd? You don't know. But that's what I believe is with these dogs is they're born game. There's nothing you're going to do about it. You can't stop it. And I've sold dogs to people and family. And the reason I'm so honest about these dogs and my experience, I have sold dogs to families that a lot of my dogs are what I call, they'll rock you to sleep. You know, rock you to sleep is they're cool. You never see anything out of them. One day they come home and they, you know, something happened, yard accident. And it's devastating. And I think what I've learned is not everybody should own these dogs. And I think I'll wrap it up with this last story. I had a friend that bugged me for a dog for years. Yeah, we want a pit bull. Da, da, da. I was like, no, you don't want one of mine. You know, there's plenty of pit bulls, but you don't want one of mine. Yeah, sure. I know bulldogs. Well, I ended up selling one to a friend. I don't even think I sold it. I think I gave it to them. Good, you know, good dog. One day I asked them, I go, how'd that dog turn out you got from me? It was like a couple of years later. They said, oh man, one day, I think they were out in the hills somewhere. You know, we never had no problems. And this dog walked up and he started killing it in front of us. We'd never seen anything so vicious in our life. It was out of character. So my boyfriend, she was telling me, my boyfriend went and grabbed a screwdriver and stabbed the dog to death. Killed it. Killed his own pit bull. Because he did not know how to manage a game-bred pit bull. The dog was just doing what was being a bulldog.
Yeah.
But if you're not experienced with it, you don't know how to manage it, people panic. They'll put a bullet in them. I've had dogs shot. OG 44 Magnum carried a bullet in him till the day he died. He was shot. We had a dog I sold to a people. He got out of the yard and a guy shot it point blank in the head with a 22. You know, but the bullet bounced off his skull. I guess that's the thing about having a good, fat, thick bone skull. It didn't kill the dog, but, you know, people, if you own a pit bull and they get loose, people are going to assume the worst.
Yeah.
So I've learned is with these dogs, not everybody should have them.
No, they should not. You are totally right. Well, OG Loco, man, I want to give you your props, man. I want to thank you for coming on this show. Everything that you're doing to preserve the breed, these fine crosses that you're doing, the studying that you're doing, that's very important as a breeder. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, especially in the dog world, do not understand breeders too much, you know. And I think that's why a lot of times, you know, breeders they're kind of like the nerds of the dog world, you know. They study genetics and characteristics of the dogs, but that's what this is all thrived off of, you know. A lot of dog men get the goodness of that, you know. And I thank you, man, for doing what you're doing, man. And I'm hoping to hear more about, especially even after this interview, I'm hoping to hear a lot more
about the OG Loco old family red-nosed dogs, man, and we want to see that these dogs get remembered. And I just thank you, man. So I want to give you I call it give a dog a bone, but it's basically like giving a dog his flowers, man.
Yeah, well, I enjoy, I'm trying to educate people. I enjoy these podcasts. I love talking dogs though. I mean,
Yeah.
I got like 4 hobbies in life, and it's my dogs, it's my Harleys, it's my Corvette, it's my horses. Outside of that, and my family. Outside of that, man, I'm really not involved in anything else. So when I can talk dogs, I'll talk. I love talking dogs.
Well, thank you, man. I do appreciate it, man. I don't really have an outro for this show. I just tell them from Beer and Bulldogs, till next time.
All right, man. Hopefully we'll catch up again on this. I like your dog. You got to tell me a little more about your dogs next time.